a whole lot more friendly towards the queer community than anybody else I had worked with, and that was still, even the bare minimum. But, every time Pride Month came out, they trot out the rainbow clothing and put it right up in the front, and the day it ended, it'd go right back into the
July
backstock.
1st.
I mean, it's the same thing as pink washing, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Where they smear everything in pink every October, but then, November 1st it's gone and
Yeah, give us your money, queers. We're not going to care about you in 3 weeks.
yeah, exactly.
so we are here to do another one of our panels. You're listening to the 805 Uncensored Podcast, a podcast about music, spirituality, politics, and more. I'm honored to have Chris and Drew from the All Left podcast. We have our co host Heather, as always, Desmond Price from the Independent Thought, and then we also have Karla. Thank you all so much for being here.
Happy to be
So,
here.
Well, if I'm here, it's not going to be about music and spirituality.
But
it's
it is
not
going to be a calm conversation.
Yes, calm, subdued, mild.
non-argumentative whatsoever, right?
Fucking no way, dude.
So we're here to talk about the ongoing fascism in the United States, TikTok ban implications, and a bunch of other topics. So let's just jump right into it. My first question for you guys is, we all have different reasons, but why do you think the US government wants to ban TikTok? Because there's a difference between a stated intention and an actual intention, obviously. So whoever wants to take that first.
I mean, I think it's a pretty simple jump here. It's a combination of heavy lobbying by American media companies, like people like Zuckerberg and that kind of thing, who have obviously paid for many senators' re-elections. And it's an easy win for people like fucking no malarkey Biden. It's an easy one for everyone to get behind. And then if you don't want to get behind it, you can gain popularity. Like if you're from a very blue state or very blue region, you can get behind it and be like, no, TikTok's fucking great, dude. Fucking yeah. And then do your Hillary Clinton bullshit and pretend like you're hip and get that end of the vote. And most of America is very scared. Like, is China on my Wi-Fi? Like, we've all seen those TikToks and the impressions, and they're fucking accurate. And the funny thing is, that's exactly how it went down with Instagram, if you recall. When Instagram was up there, it was the same things. It was like, is the Instagram's gonna find out that I've got gold under my mattress? And like weird shit. Like, does it know what's in my email if I send it from the moon?
They were
And
like asking like Mark Zuckerberg, how do you make money if you don't charge for your product?
yeah, and like, well, what if I have an iPhone? Does that change things? And like, it was the stupidest questions because it didn't matter. The point was they know that old dinosaurs like them are very afraid of technology. They're very fucking scared of social media, and they know that it is the playground of more left than right and more youth than elderly. That makes it fucking terrifying, and it means it must be stopped. And whether or not it goes through, if these old dinosaurs can get up there and A, get Zuck bucks, right? And B, go and make all the fucking old people in middle America who don't know what they're talking about feel like they're being fought for to stop the People's Chinese Communist space penguin government from coming after us. It makes everyone happy. It eludes those fears, and you've got votes. That's the entire fucking point of it. It's a scam. And then, of course, you saw what they snuck into the bill, just like the Patriot Act. They can use an outrage to then sneak in draconian measures of authoritarian control.
But let's go back a little bit, Chris. What bill are you specifically talking about? I know the answer to that, but I just want to provide some more context for
I
the
forgot what
listeners.
it's called. It's the TikTok bill. It's the
Strict
uh the Restrict
Restrict
Act.
Act.
Thank you. Yeah, which like basically like instead of just saying like, oh yeah, no TikToks. Which I mean, can we just talk about the cell phone of that one Republican senator who was like, how come every time I log on, it's nothing but underage girls and homos? It's like, oh, you don't know how an algorithm works, buddy. Um, but like, um, that the Restrict Act points out a lot of it. Like it uses, it's not just like TikTok is banned. It's that anything from it doesn't even specify specific countries or companies, right? It specifically states that anyone who's an adversarial nation. Well, this is America. That changes every fucking season. We pick a new place to go to war with, so that can change at any time, right? And if you use anything to subvert that, so if you use a VPN and even specifies VPNs to watch fucking Netflix, you could get like a $25,000 fine and go to prison for decades. The entire point is to defend capitalism from anybody going around them or using any tools whatsoever to possibly not have to pay more money into the system.
What's shocking to me about that, what you just mentioned though about the VPN, because and capitalism, a lot of companies are, employees have to use a VPN. We were talking about what my husband does for a job. He's working from home, and the only way that he's able to work on like promotional materials is because we have a VPN. He has a direct connection. And so I also wonder, like, is this also like some, like, one of the added benefits is get more people to the office, because you're not going to, no one is going to be, no one that has to use a VPN for work is going to be able to continue to work from home.
Well, I certainly think that's going to be part of it, and there is always going to be a push for by the business community to get people back in the office, because once they're in the office, you can actually keep an eye on them and make sure their productivity is up. But I think for larger corporations, they're just going to simply ignore the VPN part of the law like they always do, and they're going to get away with it. It's only designed for the people that can't afford to pay.
Okay, now, well, first of all, can y'all hear me? Because I'm outside, because inside is a little crowded,
Can hear you great.
Okay. Going back to the why, right? Like, why all of this shit with TikTok. Okay, so first of all, like, bear with me because my brain is just like full of thoughts all the time. So I'm like constantly connecting. But okay, so in sociology, we have this thing, right, that we study, which is like basically called like tools of control, right? Like social control and stuff like that. And we study like things like the panopticon and stuff like that. That's basically people self-regulate each other, right? Like people kind of like, you keep like you feel like someone's always watching you, so you kind of like regulate your own behavior and stuff. So to my point, and it's something I believe that was already mentioned, that the biggest demographic on TikTok is younger people. Whereas kind of like on Facebook, it's a little bit older people, you have family on there. So most people kind of watch what they post, right? Whereas maybe like even on Twitter, right? Like this Elon Musk shit or whatever, that homie is now at the head of Twitter, and we've seen it with like more like anti-fascist accounts getting banned and stuff like that, shut down. We see the rhetoric that's being like promoted there, right? Well, what I'm getting to is like Twitter for a long time was kind of like lawless, I guess, because it was more younger people, because people, you didn't have your like grandma or your grandpa on there. Like you can kind of like, speak your mind and stuff like that. And I really believe that TikTok, it's like, it's full of younger people. It's full of people who are kind of like posting. I mean, they post their little bullshit dances and stuff like that, but they're also posting about social movements. I remember when the George Floyd rebellions happened, I work at a daycare, and I had kids as young as like 7, 8 years old showing me these TikToks about the protests and stuff, asking me, hey, what's going on? Like, we have this shift where younger people are now, it's more accessible to them to find out about these movements, about these uprisings, about like all of these things that are happening. They're questioning shit, they're organizing shit, you know what I mean? So I really do believe that it's like they're trying to crack down on it.
Totally agree. I mean, I found out about East Palestine from TikTok.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you brought up George Floyd, right? Like, let's look at what happened with George Floyd. Like, we had an amazing American protest movement, right? We were verging on almost like a second civil rights movement there, where suddenly there was an entire generation of people who were like, hey, by the way, maybe the state constantly murdering black people without consequence is kind of a bad fucking thing. And maybe we should actually be in the streets, and maybe it's not just going to be a pussy hat party. Maybe a cop station is going to burn down once in a while. Maybe we're going to set up an anarchist autonomous zone. Maybe we're actually going to start networking amongst ourselves without tools of the state and through bureaucracies. And maybe we're actually going to start making some mutual aid situations going down, right? Maybe we're actually going to find some communal areas of support that circumvent the state. That's a fucking problem. And so that is the reason why we watched COVID protocols and safety completely disappear. That's why they vanished overnight. We had an entire group of people who had no job to go to, who had nothing better to do than sit around and realize, holy fuck, I live in a fascist police state. That's a problem. And they marched out into the fucking streets. And so instantly the government had to be like, nope, never mind. There is no COVID protection. Go back to work. Work or starve or die. Fuck you. And they immediately put everyone right back into the grind. And look what happened. We got rid of Trump, right? So all the liberals who were just like mad about mean daddy tweeting on Twitter went back home on their couch, and even the actual leftists suddenly had to pay fucking rent like normal, had to get back to a grind, had to make up for the lost wages and time they had, and were now suffering more than ever because the government took away stimulus money, COVID protections, all of that stuff. We knew that was coming in the pipeline. Even when it didn't happen right away, some of the stuff he alluded to was, oh, by the way, I'm going to get rid of the eviction moratorium. I'm going to fuck over your tenants' unions. I'm going to wipe out anything you have to actually have any mutual aid foundation. And that was a concentrated effort. And this is just another extension of that. I think Karla made that perfect connection there. This is just like that the state does not want you organizing or having communication that is free from their ability to change what you're seeing and viewing and communicating, or at least having a private partner like Meta who will absolutely bow down and kiss the ass of the state anytime they come knocking.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this the other day with regards to George Floyd. Trump, don't forget, tried to ban TikTok back in 2018. So, how do we think that the protests would have been impacted had he had his way?
I don't know. He was so inept at everything he did. Biden did more for people. I mean, Trump did more for people during COVID than Biden ever did.
Sure, but if Trump actually managed to ban TikTok back then, I don't think we would have heard about most of the George Floyd protests until, there might have been a couple of minute blurb on the end of CNN or Fox News at one night, and it would have died in a weekend.
Yeah, that was my speculation as well. So my next question for you guys is, what precedent does this actually, are there any other final thoughts on that question before I go to the next one? No? Okay. What precedent does the state banning an extraordinarily popular social media app set for free speech in the U.S.?
Free speech. We haven't had free speech since the NSA was created, since the FBI was here.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Our parents were children when free speech died.
Yeah, and way before our parents were born. We have the Sedition Act, and we could go back into the first Red Scare.
Hell, let's talk about the way the Constitution was created when Washington rallied up a fucking militia and put down Shays' Rebellion. There has never been a right to free speech in this country. It has never existed. It exists as a piece of paper, and it erodes with every generation. I mean, what free speech do we have when the state executes Martin Luther King and Malcolm X? What free speech do we have when we have states that are outlawing protest when the sun goes down? Because apparently the fucking First Amendment is solar powered. What fucking free speech? We've never had free speech, and we have less every year.
Yeah, and the First Amendment is just granted whenever the state wants us to have it, so it doesn't exist really at all.
Yeah, if you think states give you your rights, you have it backwards. You have a right because you're a living being. A state exists to limit your rights and take away your rights, and then supplementally grant certain ones it deems you're allowed to have, and you are supposed to experience gratitude to that institution. Governments do not grant rights.
Yep. So do you guys think that this is just another distraction that's being implemented by the ruling class to kind of just deflect away from what's going on within the U.S. and also around the world? Or I don't know. I kind of look at it as another cultural war thing to focus on, but I also think it's extremely important, hence why we're having this panel.
Yeah, I think it's always a shell game where, they bring up TikTok right now while they quietly bail out yet another failed bank, or I'm talking about trans rights while they're setting up strip mining on Native American land, or anything of that nature. It's always there's something to grab our attention while they're actually doing something else that is going to do tangible long-term harm to everyone. And this is just the flavor of the week, and next week it's going to be something else, and next week it's going to be something else, and next week it's going to be something else, and so on.
Yeah, and of course, all this is going on as the protests in France are escalating. I saw a TikTok the other day that was talking about this is the real reason why the state wants to ban TikTok, is because when you go on Instagram and you type in France, you just see, nice pictures of people by the Eiffel Tower sipping on wine. And then you go on TikTok and you see people burning down fucking buildings.
You see
Like
people by
kids.
the Eiffel Tower sipping on wine while people are burning down buildings in the background, which is my favorite. Like,
Dinner
I
and
saw that
juxtaposition
one. I
is
saw that.
just-
That was great.
in restaurants too,
Yeah.
just peering
Here's
out the
the thing,
window.
though. So we have a two-parter when it comes to why is it so different in France, right? I've actually been talking about this on our Discord for the alt left. Is that number one? We don't have the same culture as the French, right? The French have a long fought history since the Second World War of a more collectivist society. They have a strong working class, and when the United States rebuilt France and paid our money to do it, the French were like, oh, that's a really good idea, trade unions. I like that. We should fight for our rights. Oh my God, a retirement pension? That's fucking great. And they decided to keep it. And then the United States fell into Keynesian Reagan economics. The French wanted no fucking part of that, as they shouldn't. And so the French kept that working class solidarity and have fought the entire time. The French are willing to riot whenever they're stepped on, which is how you keep a society free. A free society is an armed society, and a free society is a society that's not afraid of the fucking cops. The United States, however, we're a hyper-individualistic society. It is me, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. It's just about me and my guns and my house and my kids and my Bible and whatever the fuck makes me happy, and fuck everyone else. This is why we couldn't get masks working on this country, right? You go over to fucking Asia and Europe, it's like, oh, I have a cold. I'm going to put on a mask so I don't give somebody else a cold. Not
It's
in the
about
United
the other
States.
person. Oh, fuck them.
Yeah, eat a dick. I'm going to spread my germs because this is America. Like, that is how we are. That's who we are as people. And so the idea that we would rise up and actually demonstrate, even if it doesn't affect us, is crazy, right? And the idea that, again, this is a nation that is founded on obedience to the state. The people who talk the most about freedom and rights are the first ones who will be the ones to lick the boots. That's who it is. The right wingers are happy bootlickers. They always have been. They always will be. Right wingers historically are monarchists. They're imperialists. They're cops. They're soldiers. That's who they are. And so, as much as they want to give lip service to freedom, yeah, they're just sucking the dick of a flag. That's all it is. They don't give a fuck about freedoms. They don't want it. They want the security of a heavy state. Now, the United States, not only do we have that, but remember, our police are nothing like French police. French police don't walk around with fucking rocket launchers and AR-15s in the back of their fucking cars. They don't have the helicopter base that ours do. They don't have fucking APCs and tanks, right? They don't have the personnel that we do. They don't have the body armor that ours do. The French police get their fucking ass whooped all the time when protests and shit go down in France. In the United States, we have a standing army of fascists who are here to gun down and kill anybody who wants to oppose the state. They view property damage as more valuable than human life of their citizenry, and the French don't. And that is why you will never see protests here like that.
Yes, however, ACAB International.
Amen. But
Heather, what do
we
you
can
think?
we can look at two pigs and see which one's the bigger one, though.
Yes, yes. Heather, what do you think?
About the distraction?
Yeah, about this culture war implication.
I mean, ultimately, I think it was a distraction. And I think evidence of that is that it's starting to fizzle. And you're seeing people in the Senate and the Congress on both sides now speaking up against it. And I think Josh Hawley brought a version of the bill to try to pull a vote. I don't know. You guys can probably tell me what Hawley did.
Yeah, he basically pulled the version and he wouldn't allow it to be read or discussed. It had to be voted on blind right away.
Yeah, and then Rand Paul all of a sudden makes sense, and speaks out against the bill, which was weird. And then AOC came out against it, and I think that so I do think it was a distraction because, I mean, that congressional hearing was a total circus, and millions of people watched it. Okay, and we have to ask ourselves what was going on at the time that was going on, right? because people were focusing on that instead. Okay, with the pupils, the guy, like, what did you hear in the news the next day? The next day, the news was not about what was going on in France. It was not about the banks. It was not about Taiwan and the escalating tensions in Taiwan. It was not about the Biden administration planning to fund more money to Ukraine. It was about that idiot and the question about the pupil dilation. And so that's, I mean, that to me is evidence that it was a distraction. And also because it's fizzling now, largely fizzling, because it is a total overreach. If you read the bill, which I sent Jordan my paper, I actually wrote a paper about this for school a couple weeks ago. If you read the bill, it is a total overreach. I mean, anyone who is in a group of 1 million people online, like, that could just be shut down. That could be like shopping on Amazon. Like, if the government just decided all of a sudden, not that I think they ever would, but that it's time to shut down the Amazon app, they'll shut down the Amazon. Or Coursera, like, they could stop people from taking classes on Coursera because more than 1 million people take classes there. It's just such an overreach.
I also think that, to your point about the media, this is just manufacturing consent 101, because I think
Yeah.
the media absolutely supports the ban.
Well, I mean, but you also, I mean, if you want to talk about the media and the media support of the ban, you need to also look at the fact that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, or Meta, spent something like $19 million on a GOP strategy company to do PR to make TikTok look like shit, look like it was all about CCP, the Chinese propaganda shit. Zuckerberg spent $19 million just to get the media to so, I mean, yeah, media manufacturer consent, but that was also paid for by the highest bidder, Meta, or Facebook, or Zuckerberg. I'm not sure who paid for it. I'd have to look, but $19 million just to spin it in the news. Just think about that. I mean, that's a lot of fucking money.
It totally is. You're bringing me to another point, Heather, which is, I've always thought a lot of this is just Silicon Valley jealousy.
Yeah.
They're jealous that a company that's based, out of China is kicking their ass at their own fucking game.
Something else we have to recognize about capitalism, right? There's a maximum market value for any product. I mean, this is something the video game industry actually suffers from a lot, right? Is that you get a video game platform, you get a genre, right? Whether it's Halo, World of Warcraft, whatever. You get a thing, and it's really popular, and a shit ton of people get into it, right? And then somebody else is like, oh man, there's money to be made there. We should do that. And so they jump on board. But the problem is the amount of people who want that product hasn't changed. The amount of people who want to buy a video game and join an online community for it hasn't fucking changed, right? So you get Marvel, right? Yes, there's been a small superhero movie thing. We made some Spider-Man. Some people liked it, whatever. And then Marvel comes out and does their thing, and everyone's like, holy fuck. So then DC comes out and makes their movies. And now Star Wars is going to launch into some giant fucking metaverse where it's all unified movies. Everyone's clamoring for the same cut of the pie. But if you're not the first one in, you don't make the same money. But there's this distorted belief that there's an endless supply. And that's what we're seeing with social media, because there's an X amount of people on their fucking phones spending time in social media, right? You are not simultaneously scrolling Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok. You're switching back and forth depending on which bathroom you're in, right? So what they're doing is they're fighting for control over your fucking eyeballs, because now instead of there just being 1 or 2 games in town, there's 5 or 6 big guys in town, and that splits the pool. And so now when you're expecting X number of $1 trillion in fucking ad revenue, you're getting a lot less, because even though the market of companies who are here to steal your attention has quadrupled, the market of people viewing has not, because there's still the same amount of human beings with phones in their hands. And so what's the next step? What's the next step that capitalism does when that fails? Instead of making a better product, you have to try to fuck over the other guy and steal his market share. And that's exactly what we saw. This was Meta recognizing that their entire user base is nothing but dying old boomers now who are sharing fucking lame-ass memes about Jesus and Bud Light, and everyone of value has moved on to Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok, right? And so Meta bought Instagram, but they can't buy TikTok. So they have to destroy it. They have to outlaw it. They have to kick it out of the market, because then they know not everyone, but some of those people will come back to scrolling Facebook.
And it's not just Facebook though that's trying to stomp them out. It's Netflix. It is the cable news. When the Senate first took this bill up, or this project up, they had a press conference, like a bipartisan press conference. I don't remember who was the main speaker, but Manchin was there and a couple others were there. And they made this stupid comment about how the average American spends 90 minutes a day on TikTok. Okay. And it's been widely known that they're outperforming Netflix now, right? But it's like this room of reporters from like MSN, CNN, ABC, all of these reporters, Fox, and he says 90 minutes a day Americans are spending on TikTok. I bet all of you would like those 90 minutes of viewership per day back, wouldn't you? And it's like he reveals in this moment, okay, well, how much money has, Fox and ABC and CNN given to this bill going forward, right? Or how much money has Netflix gone in? Because Netflix has been outperformed by TikTok for months for primetime viewership during the week. And I mean, they in America, it really goes to the highest dollar or the highest bidder, right? The person who has the most money to spend to give to our senators and our congresspeople is the one who's going to win out.
Yep. Desmond, I want to get you in on this conversation because I haven't heard you say anything. What do you think?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know if I have anything to add. I think you guys kind of covered everything. That's more or less the problem. I mean, every time Chris goes first, he just he has the whole conversation wrapped up in 90 seconds. So, I mean,
welcome to my world, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
I did a little thing on TikTok recently, but I mean, it was basically everything you guys have already been saying. I think the only distinction I would add is just that, I think it's screen time, but it's also just like data collection. I mean, all these companies make a bulk of their money off of selling our data, and TikTok has been getting more and more screen time year over year in every demographic. And so all of that data that these companies have been using to make all their money for years, they no longer have as much access to it. So they're seeing their money essentially shrink year over year while TikTok is growing year over year. It's nothing more than money. I think in my opinion, the answers to all your questions are always money. You ask yourself, why is this happening? Money.
Capitalism.
Why is that happening? Money. It's always money. It's just a matter of whose money, So I see this as nothing more than a lobbying effort, but not just by social media. I think you were kind of hitting on it, Heather. It's cable news. It's Microsoft. It's Google. It's everyone. They all feel threatened. They've all tried to replicate TikTok's algorithm. They've been unable to. Meta was trying to pay creators, giving them Reels bonuses. They went out of their way to promote Reels like crazy on Instagram last year. They cut that out because they couldn't quite figure it out. YouTube Shorts is out now this year, and they're just we're going to push that content because they're trying to compete with TikTok. They can't compete. And when you can't compete, you just ban. It's really just that simple. They know that they have control over the government. That's why they pay those people so much money. So, I mean, and if they can't manufacture consent, then at least the intelligence community can push through, the Restrict Act. I mean, that's basically the backup plan, right? So yeah, I don't know. I see this as nothing more than trying to make sure that those giant technology companies find a way to get their money back and nothing else. I mean, obviously they don't care about privacy rights.
Yeah. I think there's also a fair point that you kind of touched on there. That is, we know that the Restrict Act is fucking draconian, right? It's scary as shit. But we have to recognize that this is a pattern. It's kind of like some people talk about the false flags that got us into the Iraq and Afghanistan war, right? This wasn't an outlier. This is the method the United States uses, right? So with this Restrict Act, the United States is always, in all capitalistic countries, honestly, but the United States is always looking to find a way to restrict. Like the post 9/11 act
Patriot
that
Act.
Bush put through. Thank you, the Patriot Act. You know, the Patriot Act was written during the Clinton era. Clinton was supposed to push through the Patriot Act, and
Joe
he refused.
Biden have read it?
I don't recall, but I know that it was supposed to go through under the Clinton administration, and he absolutely refused to do it. It literally sat in a drawer. And then all of NORAD went on a vacation, and a building fell down, and all of a sudden the Patriot Act was dusted off and slapped on a table immediately and passed with uniform consent. And I think they always have this shit ready to rock and roll, like at all times. They always have some horrifying statist measure of control and of censorship and to eliminate consent of the body politic ready to go. And I think they're not expecting this to pass. Like, I do agree with you guys that this is mostly about culture wars and performative outrage, 100%. But I think they always throw this in as the Hail Mary of just in case it actually fucking works. By the way, we can also shoot you in the balls if we don't like what you're watching on TV. Fucking A, right on. Like, I think this is always waiting in the wings to be thrown into a situation. Like, they've always got a handful of these ready to go just in fucking case one of their performative things actually works. Which is terrifying.
Yeah, and Chris, I wanted to ask you this question. How does the potential TikTok ban, all the rampant anti-trans drag propaganda and gun violence relate to ongoing rising neo-fascism in this country? Because I absolutely think it's all interconnected.
Well, of course it is. Fascism is always going to be anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-drag. Fascism is always going to be anything that is not cisgendered, Christo breeder.
And it's also just fear porn, right? There always has
to be an other.
There has to be something to be afraid of.
There has to be an other. Like, why did they go after the Jews, right? Was it because there were too many Jews in banking, or because Hitler was beat up by a rabbi when he was a kid? No, they went after the Jews because it was math. The Jews were a minority population, and they were already fucking unpopular. And so what do? You have a nation who's struggling. You take all this, and you tell everyone, by the way, this has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that we lost a war and got fucked over by a bunch of shitty nations, and also the world is going through a crisis. No. It's the fucking Goldsteins over there. Go get them. That's always the plan. And we saw it during Trump, which was like, oh, no, it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a terrifying fascist, and we refuse to conquer the ideas of destroying indigenous people or killing black men in the street. No, it's the Mexicans coming over the border. You know, those people who are seeking asylum because my predecessor, George Bush, fucking destroyed South America and created death and rape squads that ran the country for decades under Reagan. The fact that we have Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, these countries that we have destroyed through imperialism, that we have created death cults of fascism in these nations, that people are literally fleeing, right? We created this problem. They come here, and then we get to bring out our jingoistic, xenophobic white fear and say, no, don't you worry. The reason why your pickup truck gas is expensive is because of the Hernandez family over there. You see the parallel? And now that's not flying so well because people are like, hey, how come there are concentration camps at the border? That's a little fucking terrifying. And Trump is out of power. Trust me, the next Republican that comes in, when DeSantis wins the next election, and he fucking will, you are going to see Mexicans get completely re-stigmatized again. You are 100% going to see a rise in hate crimes towards black and brown. Absolutely. It's going to happen. These fucking red hat fascists are not going to wait for it. The second he's in, they're going to jump on it. But right now, while we don't have someone pushing that, they're turning to another minority community. What do you have? The trans community. Less than 1% of the human population in the United States. Drag shows are already starting to get controversial. It's an easy fucking culture war. And so what do? You pick on the fucking trans community. You go after trans children, right? Already have the highest suicide rate of any fucking demographic in the country, but no, make sure they don't receive medical care. Go ahead and just make up wild fucking stories about how, well, in these hospitals, they're just performing gender-affirming care on 3-year-olds. Shut the fuck up. No, they're not. But it doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to have it. These are the same people who believe the bullshit stories about fucking kitty litter boxes. Like, they don't need actual information. There doesn't need to be fact. There doesn't need to be reason, because this is demagogness. The point is not to actually find a solution. It is. It's a fucking demagogue playbook. Yeah. It is just find the other, point them out, and then everyone can just turn their white rage into it. And that's the entire point, is if you just act shitty enough to trans people, your daddy will finally love you. Like, that is what we're really getting into, is your dick will be big enough, your truck will be awesome enough, your parents will approve of you, your wife will finally have an orgasm if you just fucking pick on trans people enough. That is the point.
Yeah, I saw this meme. It's like a husband and wife laying next to each other. He's got like a MAGA hat, and then he's like she's thinking about other men, and then he's whatever like, why is my husband so obsessed with drag queens?
Yep.
It's so fucking true. Yeah. So how do you think that we should respond if the TikTok ban goes into effect? I'm not asking how we will respond. I'm asking how we should respond. 'Cause those are
Revolution.
two
Set fire to
very
everything in the
different-
streets. Let's be the French.
Yes. There we go. And how will we respond? Because I know the answer to this one.
With pussy hats and rainbow capitalism.
I don't know about that though, because if they ban the app, you're going to have immediately 7,000 employees laid off at TikTok US. You're going to have 5 million small and mid-level small business owners who now have lost that avenue to reach their customers. You have a lot of creators and influencers, and it's actually a significant number of people that are making a living off of the using the at least partially using the platform. And the thing in particular that I was thinking about was I was talking to somebody in one of my classes who sells like cakes or whatever. And she uses TikTok and Instagram to, basically get the majority of her sales in her area. She does like geolocation tags and everything. So you have to think about there are going to be 5 million people like her who are now like, what are they going to do? So I don't know if a revolution will happen, but I don't think that those people are all going to go quietly.
Of course not. They're going to vote blue no matter who so hard.
Yeah.
That's all we're going to fucking see.
And not only that, once they lose that revenue stream, they're going to be forced back into shitty jobs in some big box store again, or
but they could be Uber
McDonald's
drivers
somewhere there. Oh yeah, you can be an Uber driver and make your own hours and make your own money that's slightly below minimum wage.
That does get that also gets back to that point though, that I wonder how much of this also is about getting people into the office, because it's not just the people that use VPN. It is like every person who took that stimulus check and turned it into a small business during 2020 or 2021. It's getting them back to, like you said, like working at Walmart or waiting tables or whatever,
I think it's partially that, and I think the gig economy was created mostly so that if we have to monetize everybody's hobbies, then they don't have time to think about anything else. And I think TikTok kind of skirts the edge of, yes, you're monetizing a hobby, but you're also being exposed to other ideas and being able to network a little bit more. So you got to shut that shit back down.
It's a good point.
Yeah, but I think we're going to see what always happens. Because again, the United States isn't right enough for a revolution, because unfortunately, everyone who's poor, everyone who's queer, everyone who's brown or black or indigenous is well aware of how fucked things are. But the problem is the white moderate is not. And there's a reason why Martin Luther King said there's nothing more dangerous and terrible than the white moderate, because they are the molasses in the fucking bowl for every march for revolution. They always will be. And until white people are starving and hurting, we're not going to see anything happen. What you're going to see is, well, if you don't like it, you better vote Democrat. AOC said she likes TikTok. Slap on your pussy head, vote for the D, and everything will be just fine. Just remember, this is the most important election of our lifetimes, guys. This is the most important election of a generation. If you just vote Democrat hard enough, if you just do it one more time, I swear to God, we'll give you health care.
Senator, just one more
fucking senator. That's all we need. Just a little bit more, and maybe we'll codify abortion. Women can be human beings with equal rights. Just maybe we'll stop oppressing brown people, totally not going to happen. But just maybe we'll think about it. Maybe Joe Biden will wake up and care about gay people. Maybe, just fucking maybe. Maybe the guy who said that busing led to urban jungles is going to wake up and suddenly give a fuck about racial equality in this country, right? Maybe the guy who destroyed Anita Hill for speaking out about sexual harassment, or the guy who has multiple credible rape allegations by his own fucking interns when he was an early young senator, that guy's going to give a shit about women's rights any fucking day now. Just you wait. Vote blue, no matter who. It's going to solve all our problems, guys.
Because they're so much better than those fucking Republicans, right?
Desmond, I feel like you're having an existential crisis under that pineapple. What's going on in your head, dude?
No, I'm not having any existential crisis. All those crises came many years ago.
Valid. So what do you think, man? You've been real quiet on this one.
Honestly, it's again, like I just don't know really what to add, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Heather, I want you to kind of set up what's going on in Tennessee because I'd like to talk about that.
Well, I think we know what's going on in Tennessee.
Well,
So
to our listeners necessarily.
I don't know. Do they have TikTok? Because if they have TikTok, if they're on TikTok, they know what's going on in Tennessee. Yeah. So we have two legislators that have been expelled for decorum, or a lack of decorum on the floor, which is a bullshit charge, in my opinion. I actually just saw earlier today, I saw a video where they were talking about how they have audio footage of another legislator urinating in a seat on the floor. Okay. And
What?
that legislator was not expelled for decorum, but peacefully protesting and speaking on behalf of your constituents for sensible gun control was.
And neither was a Republican who a few weeks ago advocated for lynching, to bring that back.
Yeah, so
Don't forget they had an admitted pedophile they refused to kick out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right as well.
Yeah, so yeah. So they were removed, expelled, but the 60-year-old white woman was not. Yeah, now what? They can
definitely held up that Peter Griffin fucking color chart, absolutely, when they decided who was staying and not.
So I just read an article before logging on that they can be reinstated because now their county, I think the chair of their county supervisor board or whatever it is in Tennessee will appoint the interim until the special election, but now the legislature is threatening to withhold state funds if they reappoint the same guys back. So I don't know, this whole situation is pretty fucked, and I'm pissed off because I feel like none of the national headliners, Joe Biden, the people that are doing it now, Chris Murphy, Gavin Newsom, he's a governor, but he still makes national news all the time. None of them really started speaking up until it was all said and done, and then just went to fundraise off of it, which is what they promptly did, and that's what I'm kind of ticked off about right now. So yeah, that's where we are in Tennessee. But I think a lot of people, this is another instance back to the TikTok thing of where would people have been talking about it, and would people have been calling, on Gavin Newsom and Chris Murphy and Biden or whomever to do something about it, even late, if they hadn't seen it on TikTok, because I wouldn't have seen it.
Don't worry, Heather. Joe Biden's inviting them to the White House, so I'm sure he really appreciates their efforts.
Right.
And they're black as long as they vote for him.
And this is something that I actually would like to get all of your thoughts on, that I've been thinking about I don't know, the last week or two. It seems like the Biden administration's kind of like MO, and maybe the Democratic Party now also, is to let things get really bad and for like the bad thing to happen, right? And then they'll do something about it. It's like we can't like do anything about abortion until, it's already been like they had all those weeks to do something, and they couldn't do anything then. Oh, but now they're going to do it. They couldn't do anything. Like Joe Biden couldn't do anything. He couldn't like call the governor of Tennessee and tell him to get his fucking legislature under control. No, he couldn't do that. Oh, but he can do something now, right?
Well, where's the profit motive in that? I mean,
Right.
I'm serious. Like, what's in it for the Democratic Party to codify abortion? That just sounds like they'd actually have to give a shit about human rights. They don't. The point is that you could hold abortion up as a boogeyman. You could be like, don't you vote Republican or they'll take abortion away. Roe v. Wade. It's hanging on by a thread, guys. Even though there were ones stripping it to a thread, it's hanging on by a thread. You got to vote blue. This is the most important election of a generation. Everybody, just send your money to the DNC. Not to Bernie Sanders, to the DNC, and make sure that you vote for us in every single election. And that's the only way we'll save abortion. And then finally, the Republicans get in power, abortion gets fucking killed. And they're like, oh, if only there was something we could have done. You know what? You know how we're going to get it back, guys? Send in your money to the DNC and make sure you keep voting blue. And once we're back in power, we'll bring Roe v. Wade back to its precipice of tipping over. And the Republicans do the same thing. Everyone's doing this. It's used as it's back pointing to the other. It's like, well, you have to support me because if you don't, those guys are going to fuck over your rights. And they can fundraise on. It's the same thing. Of course, they're not going to care about women's right to fucking choose. Of course, they're not going to give a shit about the Tennessee legislature literally voting off the only black people who have a problem with gun violence until it already happens. And then they can use all this performance. Oh my God, what a terrible thing. Who could have seen this coming? Who knew? And then, give us your money and your votes. And now we're going to go bring Joe Biden out of his, his fucking air lung that he sleeps in. And he'll get cracking on it right now, I know that like the Trump administration took away all the guidelines for the rail industry, and we just totally destroyed their ability to strike and get fair wages and time off and safer working conditions. But then a train derailed, and now we're going to give a shit. It's the same fucking story. They want these things to happen because then when these tragedies happen, they can spring to action and look like fucking heroes.
Yeah, going back to the abortion thing, what has Biden's response been to this draconian bill that they passed in Idaho? Do you guys know? Because I haven't heard shit.
He's been fucking sleeping.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything. Desmond, have you heard anything? Karla?
Nope. Not a thing.
It's fucking unconstitutional.
Everybody's Joe Biden is the only good nickname that Trump ever made.
Hands-made tale authoritarian.
It is fucking unconstitutional. And Joe Biden committed when Roe and Casey were overturned. He came he never gives an Oval Office address, but he came before those stupid curtains that they set up with the gold room, and he came up and he said, we are committed to proactively defend women's rights to the freedom of movement. He fucking said that. And now this happens in Idaho, and that is a direct violation of the freedom. I'm sorry, that is fucking the violation of freedom movement. And they're just silent.
This time for real, Charlie Brown. I won't move the football.
Yeah. He responded about the abortion medication, though. I saw on Twitter that the federal judge, I don't know, did you guys see that last night? The federal judge decided to, Karla's nodding. Maybe you can tell us more about it.
No,
I'm still unclear.
No, but okay, what I was going to say about that whole thing about like what Chris was saying, that they don't do shit because, how we say in Spanish, les conviene, like it, it's good for them, right? Like, but also I think partly because it's just that they don't fucking get it and they don't fucking care. I mean, like, look at what recently happened, right? Like, I don't know the details. So I apologize because I don't know the names and stuff. I don't really follow sports like that. But there was this whole thing that happened where a predominantly black, I believe, was it like a basketball team of young black women won, and they were playing against a predominantly white basketball team. Yeah, and Jill Biden where I think normally, usually just the winner gets invited to the White House. But this time, like Jill Biden was like, oh no, like why don't we get the losing team also? Like, why don't you just you can't just give this like young Black women the time to shine. Like you have to like fucking invite the white people. Like, and they just don't understand that. Like they don't see how that's a fucking issue. They don't see how that's like racially motivated. Like they're, like unconscious like racism on their part. Like they just don't fucking get it, because at the end of the day, they're old ass fucking white people. Sorry, like they are.
Well, the better question is, do you actually believe it's unconscious?
That's a good point.
Because I don't.
No, it's probably not
like
unconscious. No, it's just one of those. They want to have that feel-good moment where you've got the winning team and the losing team, and everybody gets together and, oh look, we've conquered racism because we're liberals and we're the Democrats and this is what we do, and then we can go back to doing absolutely nothing. And Blue MAGA is working within established parameters. There's no need for any further action on your part. That's all it really is. It's always performative bullshit. And I think they know exactly what they're doing, and I think they just don't care.
Yeah, they're always constantly searching out the great moment to fundraise off of, to go up in the polls. The Bidens have been in Washington for 50 years. Like, they live off of talking points, like, what does the polls say? Like, where's the money at? How can we use an issue to fundraise in the next election? Like, all your questions go back to money, like having the Iowa team show up at the White House, that's good for the polls. Like that's really what it comes down to. I mean, like having, young Black girls have their shine in Washington, does that pay money? Come on, that doesn't pay money. They're not interested.
Yeah, I kind of want to slightly change the topic, but
so does Biden.
This question's about like the arrest of Trump. I know you've recently touched on it, Chris and Drew, but the question's for everyone. Do you guys think the media's obsession with Trump is political, or it's about ratings? And do you think it's good or bad ultimately for the Democratic Party?
Money. The answers to all your questions are money. No, I'll keep it brief here. Look, I mean, I think CNN just like last month had their lowest ratings that they've ever had, ever.
Yeah.
Like, period. Like they need Trump to come back. This is about survival for them. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, like that's their golden goose. Like, why would they try to do something to jeopardize him coming back? Like, they absolutely need him to come back to survive. Like, I mean, he is everything that they could possibly want. The perfect distraction that also causes them to generate lots of money. It's a win-win for everyone involved.
Agreed. It's such an irony too.
He's not just a golden goose for CNN. He's a golden goose for everybody. He's a golden goose for Newsmax and for Fox and for the DNC and for the RNC, because everybody's going to raise money off of this. Because now all of a sudden, the great leader of the Republican Party is under arrest, so let's fundraise there to keep him out of jail and keep those filthy commies from engaging in yet another witch hunt. And then on the Democratic side, it's like, okay, you've got to give us money, because if he doesn't get convicted, he's coming back to the White House, and isn't all of our lives going to be miserable then?
He also raised $10 million for his campaign since the indictment. I mean, in just a week's time, $10 million fucking dollars for his campaign. So it's even a moneymaker for him.
Oh, I fucking called that weeks ago. Like, that's the thing, is like, this is the one that really pisses me off about him getting arrested. This is the stupidest way they could have fucking done it, right? Like, because let's be real, right? Let's not just be anti-Trump because Trump sucks. Let's look at things. Let's take a step back and actually look at them, right?
Yeah.
Because a broken clock can be right twice a day. Trump actually is being persecuted. And I know that's a real unpopular opinion. Before you lynch me, fucking hear me out. Like, what is happening to Trump is not because he's a dangerous fucking fascist. What's happening to Trump is because the attorneys of New York don't fucking like him. Like, what you are looking at is liberal outrage. This is pussy hat performance. That's all this is. This is Hillary Clinton shit. Because if they actually gave a fuck about justice, they'd put that motherfucker on the gallows for an insurrection or for fucking vote tampering in Georgia, which are all coming down the pipeline later. But they decided to lead with this. Like, that's what the Justice Department cares the most about, was whether or not he paid a sex worker and called it a business expense. Like, this is some fucking mafia style shit of getting them on tax evasion. That's all this is. This is ridiculous, and it no pun intended, it's trumped up. That's really what it is. And the problem is when you go after someone and use the justice system because they're an asshole and you don't like them, that's the definition of persecution. And that's the problem, is he's actually being persecuted instead of being tried for the fucking dangerous fascist that he is. He's getting tried on business expenses. This is the best use of our fucking justice system. So what's going to happen? It's going to prove all of these fucking red hat fascists that he was right all along. Look, Jesus, fucking the Orange Fuhrer is being fucking persecuted. It's just a big state. It's just the fucking Democratic communists coming after him. It's just going to validate their stupid QAnon bullshit even more, and it's going to allow him to fundraise the fuck out of this. This puts him right back into the crosshairs for the White House. This lets him fucking fundraise, write books. I mean, he's gonna watch. If he goes to jail, he's gonna write a book called My Fucking Struggle. I shit you not, dude. Watch it happen. Like, this is gonna fucking happen, and they're enabling it. They're making this guy because, just like Desmond and Heather were saying, like, they benefit from this, right? The left, or not the left, the fucking left doesn't benefit for this. Off the left is in charge. This motherfucker be up against a wall, but the middle liberal and the fucking right wing both benefit from his existence, right? MSNBC benefits just as much as Fox News. He's a fucking demagogue and he's a sacrificial goat. And they all make a bunch of money by doing this. So instead of actually grilling him and nailing him for something he's actually guilty of doing and that is a fucking problem, they go after him for paying sex workers, which is the stupidest fucking charge you could possibly do. Which also, by the way,
is the reason
villainizes sex work. Like, there's an anti-feminism side to this as well. Because now all we're saying that he is a problem because he's enabling a sex worker, because there's very little that's actually being talked about, like, because, well, it was technically he filed it as a campaign expense. Like, that's not being talked about in the media. Everyone wants to talk in the media about, like, oh, Stormy Daniels sucked his dick and he paid money and now she's going to tell us what kind of wiener he has. Like, it's this anti-sex shaming, sex worker shame bullshit, and it's no one wants to call up the anti-feminism for what it is. And it's the same thing with that cop, right? Those cops in, where was it, where the whole police department was having fucking orgies?
Tennessee.
Oh, of course it was. Thank you, I'm not. I shouldn't be surprised. Yeah, the new game is Tennessee or Florida, right? So, like, fucking, what did we do? Did we see the other cops' pictures very much? The only time you ever even see the other cops' photos is when it's a whole group of all of them together. But we all saw her face fucking plastered everywhere, because there's nothing wrong with 6 guys desperately trying to get laid. But if one woman cheats on her husband with her coworkers, it's a big fucking problem, and we got to smear her face all over every social media site we can. And it's the same thing here. People want the sensationalism of Stormy fucking Daniels, and that's what it really is. So yeah, we got an anti-sex work motive, we got a sensationalism, the media motive, and all it does is enable Trump to say, I'm being persecuted, I really am Jesus, and give me your fucking money and vote for me.
Yeah, I think CNN is going to go right back to the old Jeff Zucker playbook, who was the former boss, and just covered nonstop, because the new boss was at first opposed to that, but now you can already see that they're doing all kinds of coverage with Trump because they need Trump, as you guys are correctly saying. They made him. The liberal media made Trump. He wouldn't have won without them.
And Hillary Clinton, don't forget, like, she also conspired to make sure, because she thought she could beat him, he was the candidate she wanted, not Bush.
Of course. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, like, just ask yourself the most important question is, what is these news companies, what is their number one job? It's to make money. That's the number one reason they exist. That's to inform people. And how do they make money? Trump makes money. They need him to exist. The Democrats, Joe Biden needs Trump to be the nominee, because if it's not Trump, then he doesn't get reelected.
Yeah, no one voted for Biden. Everyone just voted against Trump.
Yeah. So I mean, if the best thing that could happen to Biden is Trump becoming more popular.
Yeah.
So if anything, I bet Biden will actually send a thank you to this New York DA, because it was the perfect decision. coming after him with this charge, which was never going to stick, which was only going to make him more popular, is exactly what Biden needed. It was.
Yeah, Biden cannot beat any other candidate in the polls. DeSantis, who else has declared? Haley,
no one.
whatever. Yeah, no, fucking nobody.
Nobody else that really matters.
Yeah, and
Nikki Haley.
And then the other thing for Biden that I noticed the other day is Marianne Williamson, the Democrat who has declared, she's starting to gain in the polls on him, and pretty quickly. Like, I think I saw like 33% of people will vote for Biden and 10% of people will vote for her, and then the rest are undecided. So that is a pretty significant and quick gain.
How long till she gets the Bernie treatment?
Oh, it's already happening. I was just going to talk about
It's already happening.
They already changed the schedule for the primaries, didn't they?
Yeah, she's the crazy
first. That worked so well last time.
Yeah, no, she already, no, Jordan, you're right. She already is. Like, they're like making jokes about her, like she's a fucking joke candidate. And I thought her response, I don't know if you saw it, was Marianne Williamson's response to the press secretary like laughing about it and making fun of the religious stuff. Her response was spot on. She said, she like quoted the statistic of how many Americans, are religious or spiritual. And she said, I would, warn the White House against mocking the American people in their religion, because we know that they hold it pretty close. So she just hit them right on, because they are already treating her like a fucking joke.
Yep. Remember, if you're to the left of Reagan, you're a communist. So
God, I want the Joe Biden that everyone told us about.
I know. Remember, he was going to be the most progressive president in history.
He was gonna outlaw the police and open up the borders. Yeah.
He's going to open the borders. He has the same border policy as Trump.
They're saying like the blue, like the tried and true, like the ones with the Kamala Harris in their profile picture on Twitter, they all say that he is the most progressive president in United States history.
I always hope that those are actually just bots, because I don't want to come to terms with the fact that they're real people.
Because people exist.
I'd say the sooner you come to terms with it, the better. I mean, it's not going to make you happy, but it's going to.
I try to maintain some sanity here and there,
Yeah, that's fair.
The Blue MAGA zombies. Yeah, it's a matter of fact. My last question for the panel is about Biden. So, do you guys think he's going to run in 2024?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not going to give him a choice in the matter one way or the other. He may not want to run. I don't think he wants to be there now. I think he knew that he had his time, and then I think Chris said this when it was brought up during the election, that it was basically the DNC almost literally put a gun to his head and said, no, you're the nominee. It's going to happen.
I don't think
can't let Bernie Sanders win. He's slightly left of Reagan.
I think there's actually a good chance he might not run, which I think is why you're seeing Gavin Newsom constantly putting himself in the news, because he really thinks that he has a shot.
I think there's something to
shot.
be
He's going to be. He will be a presidential candidate eventually, right? He's wealthy. He's good-looking,
and I'm sure he would be in 2028 no matter what. But I mean this cycle.
Yeah,
I think he's truly angling for it, because the real possibility is still out there, and I'm hoping so. I mean,
I don't think so.
I think he will. Biden doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think the likelihood of Biden running for re-election is strong, like 80, 85, 90%. But I guess I'm just holding out hope that he changes his mind.
But something we got to remember, though, another scary thought, is that the Republican primaries are far more democratic than the Democratic ones are. Right? They actually care about popular opinion vote. The DNC does not, nor do they have to.
Fucking super delegates.
The DNC, they pick a fucking horse and they commit to it. They don't give a fuck what anybody wants or what anybody will actually vote for. They pick their favorite banking candidate and they put the full weight of the party behind them regardless.
Yeah, we really need to be spending more time in these in-between moments talking about super delegates, because we don't talk about it until it's too late. Honestly.
DNC's treatment of Bernie in 2016 is what turned me into a leftist. That's how I got out of the liberal category and moved into the leftist category.
The Iraq invasion, actually, I was young.
Yeah, I was too young.
I'm also older than you. But yeah, the Iraq invasion, that's when I was like, oh, all right. Well,
yeah, that's a
fuck
yeah.
capital.
Yeah.
I think
it's funny how we all have those moments too. Like once you become a leftist, because like there's always like everyone can say like there was this one thing that suddenly I went, this is horse shit, and then all of a sudden I questioned everything about my Christo-fascist white upbringing, and like, oh my god, like it's like this is the bad place. Like you have that moment, you know, that realization, and everything crumbles down in a very short period of time.
It's so true. Mine was after I ran for city council, and then I questioned two things. I questioned something the county Democratic Party did. It was something really fucking stupid, like really dumb. And then I criticized Biden for coming to work sick in like, I don't know, like right after he was elected. He was like had a cold, and I criticized him for it. And I got kicked out of the moms, like the Democratic club, like the moms of Ventura County Democrats or whatever. I got kicked out of I got kicked out of the moms Facebook group and called too progressive. And then I was like,
fucking socialists taking over.
I was like, well, maybe I am too fucking progressive. And I think just like you just said, Chris, everything just kind of came crumbling down from there. And I started questioning every single thing that I read because it didn't seem right. So to your point about Gavin Newsom, you know, I firmly believed him for like the last year, saying over and over again in the media that he was not angling for 2024. Like he kept saying, no, I'm not running. But then like 2 weeks ago, he started this national PAC called like, I don't know what the fuck it's called, like Democracy Movement or whatever. And they announced that he was going on this like trip around the country to like visit the red states and take on the growing fascist movement across the country. And I was like, oh my god. And now for like the last 2 weeks on Instagram, he's been like in fucking like Mississippi and Alabama, and I think he just finished in Florida. And I mean, it's cool. Like his kids are with him, and his wife is with him. But then I was like, oh my god, it looks like he's running. This looks like a presidential run. You know?
No, looks like.
Yeah.
No, looks like. No, like don't listen to what they say. Like what are they doing, right? Like what are the actions? I mean, he was running ads against Ron DeSantis in Florida months ago. Like you don't just randomly decide to do that one day. Like there's always a reason for it.
Oh yeah, Gavin wants to run. He may decide to bow out this time, and honestly, I think I am now less sure that Ron DeSantis is going to run. I mean, if he runs, he will win, but I'm not so sure he's going to run right now, just because Trump has been given such a boon, and he's at the point where he hasn't actually announced. He's done everything short of announcing, but he doesn't have to. And if he sits back, he's still a young man, and he can go in 2028. And I think Gavin Newsom is doing something similar. I think they're both testing the waters, because I think they both realize that it's going to end up being a head-to-head between the two of them in one of the elections in the future.
I mean, running for president is a very, very long process. You know, you don't just decide. That's what is so scandalous to me about Biden taking so long to make his mind up, right? Because if let's say like he decided not to, like how much leeway to, I mean, he's saying he's not going to decide till the fall or the winter.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, they said that like a week or two ago. I'll find the tweet and send it to you. Yeah, they said that he will decide. In fact, I'm going to Google it while we're still here, because I read it and I'm like, fuck. Can they wait that, like, what kind of a strategy is that? To me, that says he has to be running, because no other candidate is going to be able to build their campaign committee, get their field campaign going. I mean, I interned on Evan Bayh's field campaign down in Santa Monica 3 years before he even joined the primary. Okay, like you don't just throw that shit together at the last minute like that. And so when I saw that, I was so shocked. Let me Google it.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to DeSantis, though, for going back to that, I wouldn't be surprised if he ran this time. Like, even though he probably wouldn't win because Trump has already has such an advantage over him. I mean, a lot of winning an election nationally is name ID. So I wouldn't be, and a lot of people know his name right now, but he's still not that well known by most average voters, people who aren't like constantly consumed with the news. So I wouldn't be surprised if DeSantis runs this time just to boost his national profile.
I think
Yeah,
there's
and he
also
might do that. I mean, there is historical precedent for that. Reagan ran against Ford and only barely lost, and then he blew away the competition 4 years later. So it may be that he's angling for that as well.
I think there's also
So here,
a lot of
sorry, go ahead.
conservatives that are confused that like DeSantis and Trump are on different teams. They're like, wait, I thought they were friends. I think they're not like understanding that they're political enemies.
Yeah, fascists don't have friends; they have allies of convenience.
So the Axios,
Yes.
the Axios article that I read says Biden advisors don't expect a decision until July or fall. And they're trying to spin it as a positive because if he does bow out, the obvious next in line would be Kamala.
Well, that's a loss.
And that's the other thing. In previous times, you could just bank on the vice president, right? But she's historically unpopular.
I mean, she had to drop out before Iowa for a reason. I mean, she wasn't popular when she was running by herself.
And her record on trans people is gonna really fuck her over with young voters, because guess what? Kamala Harris has no problem with killing trans people.
Also, she's literally
She already has.
This article also says that his decision on whether or not he and this is interesting, whether I didn't read this far before, his decision is also going to be based on his fundraising numbers.
Blue.
Give us your money because Orange Man's scary.
It's so funny because the conspiracy theorist in me, right? Like I want to put on my foil hat and start looking at everything going on and wondering like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe Biden, who is, I mean, he is very smart. Maybe they saw a potential to fundraise after the Tennessee thing, but that would only happen if they got booted, right? Or the TikTok ban. Maybe they can figure out a way to fucking fundraise on that. I don't know.
But the thing is, the Democrats support the ban. That's one of the few things that are bipartisan in the government right now. The Republicans and the Democrats are in fucking lockstep on this.
I remember Joe Biden was like, "Oh, banning TikTok? Fuck yeah."
Yeah. It's only like a handful of progressives that are opposed.
And one Republican.
Who's the Republican again?
Rand Paul.
Okay. Yeah.
There's no surprise there. That's his wheelhouse.
Libertarian.
It's like the thing about it is like so much of his decision making, especially with his new chief of staff, is so like calculated with. It's every decision is politicized, right? It's not about right or wrong, and I know that that's been the way it's always been, but it is especially acute now. And so it's like I look at every single thing going on now, and reading that they are scrambling to fundraise as much as they can before making a decision. What the fuck?
You know, I don't know. This is the part of me that makes me think that there's a chance that he might not run, because if you really wanted to prevent anybody else from jumping into the race, you would declare now. I mean, because
you're the president.
Yeah, and Obama declared in, I think it was April of 2011. So this would be the exact same time that he would have declared for his reelection campaign. I don't know. I
I would think he's worse off the longer he waits.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, we all know how old he is. I mean, I think the reason why we don't hear him that much is because he has no fucking energy. He's in his 80s. Like, he shouldn't be in office. Like, I don't give a shit about the ageist argument. I really don't. I mean,
Yeah.
he shouldn't be the president, and we'd all be better off if he stepped down.
I mean, it doesn't seem like he even wants to fucking be there. I mean, how many
He ever
spent?
wanted to.
Yeah, he spent 40% of his time in office on official vacation days. And the rest of the time he spends traveling around making remarks. I mean, he does not want to be there.
No, he wants to fucking die. He's an old man and he's done. He wants to retire. He wants to sit at home and hang out with his wife and set his son up on sweet Ukrainian oil deals. That's all he gives a fuck about.
Just eat ice cream and watch reruns of Golden Girls.
This guy is so low energy and so fucked that like they had to get Jim Carrey to come out on SNL and like finger gun at everyone with sunglasses on to try to create this image that Joe Biden was energetic. Like, he's an old man who wants to retire and they won't let him.
Yeah.
What did that guest on the last panel say from the guy from Canada? He said that they view him as Weekend at Bernie's. Like, he said when you ask him what do the Canadians think of what's going on in America, and he said, you guys have you're living in fascism and you've got Weekend at Bernie's at the helm.
Fuck yeah! That's why I love having people on this show from other countries. Because it's so important to get an international perspective. Because, like, I mean, we're well aware of the fuckery that we're exposed to 24/7, 365. But to still have that international perspective fucking finger blasted into our brains is incredibly paramount.
It's very important.
And I think it takes you back to the original topic of this panel, which is TikTok. Because on TikTok, I think a lot of average Americans that actually don't normally get that outside perspective are getting it. I mean, you scroll your TikTok long enough and you have, somebody in the UK saying like, "Hey, US, are you guys okay over there?" Yeah, and then so I think that people are being exposed to a more global perspective of what's going on here, and then they start to feel it. I mean, I go on TikTok and I feel stressed. I feel stressed as hell because it's like what's going on in the world. I don't feel very good about it. And so I think getting back to like that, our original panel discussion, that's another thing they want to stop, people getting that perspective.
Yeah, they don't want Gen Z looking around going, this is the bad place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the future, Chris, you mentioned Iraq War earlier. I think we should do an episode about Iraq because 20 years on from the war, half of Iraq's population is under the age of 25. And, they were promised that they were going to have all these seats in the government. They were going to be involved in the democratic process. And it's been total bullshit. And so I'd like to do a long format episode on that.
Absolutely. And I do have to get going in a minute. Before I go, I also want to remind everyone that Joe Biden personally killed more Afghanistan people than the U.S. military did. Because when we pulled out of Afghanistan, he emptied the bank accounts of the entire nation and gave it to private contractors and some families of 9/11 victims. I don't fucking know why, but yes, that's what he did, and he has caused a famine and starved more children and done more damage than the U.S. military ever did. So just, keep voting blue. It's going to be good, guys.
Shout out the Alt Left podcast.
They're pretty awesome. Drew, tell us about the Alt Left podcast. Are they great?
They're okay.
Before I had my Twitter. So you can catch us. We are still actually technically on Twitter. We don't really post there at all except for our episodes. But you can catch us on Twitter at the Alt Left Pod, and you can catch our link tree there. It's going to get you to all the places you can see us, hear from us, and you can get on our Discord, which is actually the better way to talk to us because we're very active on there. But right now, if you go to Twitter at the Alt Left Pod, you'll find us. Hit our link tree, hit our Discord, and come say what's up.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for having us on, dude.
Yeah, love it. Desmond, go ahead and shout out Independent Thought, please.
Sure. Independent Thought is a podcast that you can find on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. We are also on social media where you can mostly talk to us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, places like that. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here again. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Carla, where can people get in contact with you if they want to?
I mean, I guess on Instagram at Morena805. But I am still in school, so I am not that as active as I would like to be. But as soon as I fucking graduate on June 16, I'm out here in these streets again, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Here.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Congratulations.
It's always great
Thank
having you on. You'll be on many more times, I promise. Have a good rest of your night. As always, the 805 Uncensored Pod is on TikTok. We are on Instagram, YouTube. If you want to ask us a question, have a comment, guest idea, or suggestion for an episode, go ahead and shoot us an email at 805uncensored@gmail.com. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great night, evening, morning, wherever you're listening in the world, and stay safe out there. Bye.